What's up, guys? The following video is a preview of my full stack complete web developer course that will teach you HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP. This is a 100% project-based course. There's no boring theory. We build over 20 projects together to teach you how to be a web developer. By the end of the course, you'll actually be able to build projects without somebody like me holding your hand. And at that point, the sky is the limit. You can build any project, launch anything you want, get a job, whatever you want to do, guys. So this is going to cover the PHP intro of our course. It's going to teach you how to set up PHP and install it on your local computer and start writing PHP for the first time. There's also one little mini lesson where I'll show you basically how full stack apps work, and we're going to combine HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP all on the same web page so you can see what that looks like as well. Hope you enjoy the free preview, guys. I'll see you in the next video. All right, guys, welcome to the PHP part of this course. So we're going to learn PHP, and by learning PHP, and we're also going to learn a database called SQL, the most used database pretty much in the world for sure. By the end of this course, guys, you're going to know JavaScript, PHP, HTML, CSS. You're going to be a full stack developer. So very, very cool. The reason why I'm going to teach you guys PHP and not something like Node.js, which is a fad, or Ruby or Python, is because PHP was literally invented back in the 90s to be the back-end language or full-stack language of the web. So all of these new fancy frameworks like Node.js have come around. People are using Python in the back end now. But let me show you something, guys. Let's just type this in: percentage of websites built with PHP. There are nearly 2 billion websites, and 77.4% of them use PHP. So I know that YouTube and all the popular stuff out there to get people to learn coding doesn't mention PHP, and if it does, it talks bad about it, or like it's a bad language and you shouldn't learn it and it's old. Guys, PHP is baked into the web and it's not going anywhere, and it's the dominant language out there no matter what anybody says. So yes, it's a little old. It might not be as fun to write as some other languages, but this is what you want to learn if you want to be a full stack web developer. Trust me, okay? PHP is king. Remember that. Again, this is PHP. You might see it, the logo is like a little elephant. That's a popular PHP logo, or this. But this is like the little PHP logo, right? So up until now, we've learned JavaScript. So you learn basically all of the fundamentals of programming languages by learning JavaScript first, which is a great choice. So you're going to know, like, PHP has all the same things as JavaScript, guys. It's just programming in general. It has arrays. We're going to use loops, variables, functions, parameters, arguments, it's all the same stuff. So you've already learned all the basics, which is cool. So now we can really jump in and hit the ground running with PHP, because it's not that hard to learn at all, especially now that you know JavaScript. So up until now, though, I just want to point out we've been just using JavaScript, and only JavaScript is just interpreted by the web browser on your computer. So we're in Chrome right now. All JavaScript does is interpret the code directly in your web browser. There's no database, there's no server that we're hitting. It's really just in the browser. So that's where it differs from PHP. The PHP workflow is we're going to build stuff. The PHP code is going to get sent to a server. Now you can either send your PHP code to like a paid server that you pay money for every month, okay, to store your data and your PHP in your database. Or the good news is you can download your own little local PHP server for free, which we're going to do, so that you can run and build all your websites locally on your computer before you push them out to the web, which, you know, it does cost money to host full stack applications most of the time, if you want it to be a decent website at least and actually work, because now you have to pay to actually like store files and data on the real web. With PHP, you can make front-end JavaScript websites and, you know, host them for free, no problem, because they're just front-end applications, and maybe they use local storage, but that's still not a database. But PHP, like when you're making websites with PHP involved, that's the real deal. You usually have a database, you've got real data, you've got a real web app, and you need to actually pay for premium hosting, which isn't that expensive. It's like $5 a month. But anyway, now we're going to be writing our code in our text editor. It's going to run our PHP code through our server that we're going to download, and then that's going to interpret the PHP file. So the web browser is not going to be reading our PHP code and putting it on the screen. It's actually going to be rendering from the server in the back end. So it's a different workflow. It's the server now, it's not the browser. And then step 3, our database stuff, our files, everything will be shown from our PHP file from the server on the screen to the user. So that's how backend languages like PHP work, basically. They're going to be rendered from the server. So it's a little bit different. But of course, we use JavaScript along with that too, right? So that's it, guys. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to download and install PHP on your machine so that we can start running PHP through a local server and building projects. All right, guys. So we need to install PHP in a local web development environment on our computers to run PHP. Because again, PHP renders from a server. It doesn't render from the browser. It doesn't appear. The stuff that you code will not appear just if you just try to code it through the browser. Chrome doesn't have a built-in PHP, what's called a PHP interpreter. You need a server for that. So what I recommend you download is something called MAMP, M-A-M-P. I think it stands for like Mac, Apache, something else in PHP. And this is mostly for if you're on Mac. If you're on iOS or Mac, like I am, I'm on a MacBook Pro. This is definitely the one that you want to download. They do also have a version now for Windows that does work. Luckily, they didn't for a long time. But if you want to follow along and be in the exact same environment as me, go to MAMP, even if you're following with me on Windows, and download the Windows version. Okay? So I just click download, so it should be downloading now. And here it is. It's in my downloads folder, so I'm going to unzip that. I'm going to open it. MAMP and MAMP Pro downloader, yes. So we'll click download. And again, if you're on Windows, guys, literally you're following the same steps. Your interface might look slightly different, but we should all know how to download stuff on our computers, right? Just click the download button. So let's let this download here. And notice how the MAMP logo is like a little PHP elephant like I showed you, right? So we know we're on the right track. Alright, guys. So it took me about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to get this to download, so just be patient. Alright, through the magic of editing, I'm done, right? So I'm going to hit continue. Just hit continue. It's going to go through the usual BS of their license agreement that nobody reads. We'll agree. You take up 2.7 gigs on my computer, whatever. And we're installing here. So now it's all these thousands of little packets of files and code going on the computer. So again, we'll just have to be patient. I'll speed it up through editing, but just go ahead and do what I'm doing here, and I'll see you on the other side. Alright, so my installation was successful. Let's see. Yes, we can move that to the trash. We don't need the installer. Alright, so now wherever your new applications go to, on Mac, they just go to your applications folder by default. So here's MAMP and MAMP Pro. So on Windows, it might be in your C drive or wherever. So find it, what you just downloaded. So it forces you to automatically download MAMP Pro, which is a paid subscription, but we're not using that one, so you don't have to worry about it. Just let it sit there, okay? Go ahead and open up your MAMP, and then MAMP again. And here we are. We are now in. This is what you should have. This is your little server. So this start button is kind of like live server, okay? When we hit start, it'll actually launch a server that PHP can connect to. We're going to keep it on Apache for right now, and we'll just run the latest version of PHP. That's fine. So hopefully you're here, guys. If you had trouble or you're not on a Mac and you're on Windows and you don't want to use MAMP, there is another Windows version of the same thing by a different company, and it is called XAMPP. So XAMPP, XAMPP. So this one right here, this is for Windows, and you can download this for Windows. It might work a little bit better on Windows than MAMP if you're on Windows. So I'm not a XAMPP user, I'm not a Windows user, but what I'll do is I'll link a video to how to install this if you're having any trouble. There's a lot of really good YouTube videos out there about installing XAMPP on Windows. So I'll link to that in the description of the video. Just go ahead and watch whatever tutorial I put if you want to put XAMPP up there. But I'm pretty sure MAMP and XAMPP look almost identical. Like you'll eventually get to this screen that looks very similar. Alright guys, so I'm going to end the video here, and I'll see you in the next. Alright guys, so it's time to start our server, make a file, and write our first PHP. So before we do that, I want to check a few things out here in our MAMP, or if you're using XAMPP, but you'll have, again, pretty similar. You want to make sure our web server is on Apache. That's what we're going to be using. PHP version, I just keep it on the latest version. And then I'm going to go to my preferences. And I want to go to ports. And you can see here we're on Apache, and our Apache port is 8888. So that means that we're going to be going to that port to actually load the pages that are being the PHP pages that are being generated from our little local server here on MAMP. So we can't just open up Visual Studio Code, guys, and click go live to do our live server. Remember, we're doing it through MAMP now because we need to have a PHP interpreter. And your web browser is not going to be able to do that, so we have to use MAMP, okay? So don't try to make a PHP file and click go live like we've been doing in all of the other courses. It's not going to work, okay? So I just wanted to point that out to you, the ports thing, where we're going to be going to open up our files. Another thing I want to point out, if we click on server, it says document root here, and what that means is this is how you basically open up your PHP files that you want to view on the screen while you're building like an application. So it's in the applications folder, then MAMP, which we're in, and then in the htdocs folder is where all of our files that we want to see on the screen should be kept. So we can actually see that here. If I go back, I click into MAMP, and then we're in this file here. If we click on this is what brings us our little our main server area to start the server, right? But then you'll also see up here the htdocs. So this is where all of our documents are going to go. So what I want to do is I want to right click and click new folder on my desktop, and I'll just name this folder php-intro. And then I will drag this into my htdocs folder. Okay, so now PHP intro is in here. And then what I want to do is I want to start my my little Apache server. So we're going to click start. And nothing's going to happen now, but what we'll do is we'll open up our Visual Studio Code. So let's make sure that I'm in the right folder. So I want to I'm just going to open the whole htdocs folder into my Visual Studio Code. So here it is. Here's htdocs, here's PHP intro, the file that we just made. Now we're going to create a file. So just like we've been doing, but it's going to be a .php file. So let's say I'll make this file name 1-intro-php. We'll say 1-intro, and then we'll make it .php. It'll be easier to read. And now you can even see Visual Studio Code is picking up that this is a PHP file. I've got the little PHP logo here. I'll hit enter. And the cool thing about PHP, guys, is you're essentially just making an HTML document like we've been doing, and then putting PHP code in PHP tags, kind of like we put JavaScript in script tags. So everything should be really similar. We can do the same shortcut to make our boilerplate code, and it's just going to be HTML, right? And then we can say in the title, we'll just say my first PHP, okay? And then we can even make an H1 in here. Just say PHP is awesome. And let's actually launch the document here. So to do that, so we have remember, we already started our server. So our server's running, we're in htdocs in our folder called PHP intro. So we have to be in the htdocs folder. Let's go ahead and I'm going to open a new window for Google Chrome. And now remember, our port is that 8888. And how you access that is you go to your web browser and just type in localhost, all one word, and then a colon, and then 8888 to get the port. And it's automatically going to take us to our index, which is our htdocs folder. So now we're in the htdocs folder. We're actually in it, but in our browser now. Okay. Here's our PHP intro folder, and there's our 1-intro.php right here. So we'll click on that, and there we go. There's our PHP. This page is running on a local server that can interpret PHP now. So again, we can't just click go live here. If we try that, look, it has no idea what to do. This is a PHP file. It's not going to show you anything. Can't do that anymore. That's done for now, okay? So we're in our PHP file, and now let's write our PHP. So I've already told you PHP was made for the web, so it integrates right into HTML pages or with HTML, no problem. You can put HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP all on the same page if you wanted to. So we have an H1. Now let's actually make some PHP. So to do that, you just make an opening and closing PHP tags. So what they look like is this. It's a less than sign, a question mark, and then you type PHP. And then your closing tag is going to be just a question mark and a greater than sign. Now, everything in between here, this opening and closing PHP tag is now going to be PHP. Even though we're in HTML, it just integrates seamlessly. So when you try to learn Node.js or Python or any other language, Java, you have to jump through like 10 hoops to get to actually run it on the server. It's more complicated. With PHP, since it was made for the web, it just integrates seamlessly. We don't have to do anything other than, get our server running. That's it. Now I'll show you a little like built-in PHP method called echo. So if we write echo space and then just kind of like a string in JavaScript, we're going to make a string. And we can say this is my first PHP and save. And now it's not going to update automatically because we have to refresh the page. Because remember, we're not on a live server now. We're on our local host running through MAMP. So if we have to refresh the page to see our changes. So let's refresh. There it is. Look, this is my first PHP. Pretty cool, huh? So that's basically how you can render out strings in PHP. You can use this echo little method here. And again, everything is a carryover from JavaScript. PHP has built-in methods, functions. There's going to be loops, arrays, variables. Everything is going to be the same, just written in a little bit different syntax, okay? So that's all I wanted to do for this video here, guys. It's getting kind of long. In the next video, we'll continue writing some more PHP. Welcome back, guys. So I want to just make a video on comments in PHP and how to comment your code. And it's pretty much identical to JavaScript. So I'm just going to start my MAMP server here. Remember, we've got to run our server if we want to run our PHP, right? So let's start our MAMP server. I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code, and I'm already in my htdocs folder. So remember, to access our htdocs live after we start our server, remember, you got to start your server first so that the PHP will run on your system. Well, let's go open up a new Google Chrome window or whatever browser you like to use. And remember the ports and everything that we're at here. So remember, we're at... go to preferences, ports, we're at 8888 localhost. So remember, it's local, and this should be saved if you went to it on the last video. As soon as you start typing localhost in there, it should pre-populate by now, so makes your life easy. And then there's our PHP intro file. So now we're in htdocs, there's PHP intro, and then there's our one-intro.php where we're at. So let's open that up, and here we are. Now we're on our server. This is our PHP server. This is basically our full stack server now, okay? So, just to show you some code, some comments in PHP, it's just like JavaScript, guys. If you want to write just a single line code, it's just // and then you can write your code. So, this is my first PHP. Okay, and then let's make another. Let's just copy this echo down. Remember, echo just basically renders or processes a string out onto the page, right? And notice, I want you to notice something right now on PHP, guys. See how there's a squiggly in here telling you something's wrong? It's because PHP is a lot more sensitive than JavaScript. You have to put these semicolons when you're done with a block of code, or it will cause errors, okay? So it's a lot more, I guess you could say, strict. You got to be careful with your PHP. So put your semicolon, save, refresh the page. Now we have our PHPs there. And then I'll say, this is my second PHP. All right, so now we have two echoes out here. Remember, we got to refresh. This is my second PHP is now there. So we have two echoes. I have a single line comment. So or I can just say, probably should just say this is a single line PHP comment. And again, guys, be coding all of this with me, okay? Make your own little files and follow along with me. So this is a single line PHP comment, and then for a multi-line, it's just like JavaScript. It's /*// and now you can write as many lines of comment in here as you want. So you can say This is, oops, I don't know why I'm in caps lock. This is a multi-line PHP comment. You can go down to different lines. I love PHP comments. Okay, so as we saw in our JavaScript course, it's important to comment your code, especially when it gets, you figuring out now you can easily write 100 lines of JavaScript, PHP, HTML, CSS without even thinking about it at this point, because you've been doing it with me in these courses for so long. It's just it's becoming second nature. You can write a ton of code without even realizing it, and you want to comment your code, because if you come back to a project in 2 or 3 months, you might forget what half your code does, right? We're not going to remember everything, so it's always good to comment your code. And then, of course, it doesn't show up just like in PHP, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. If you ever go to view like the page, so if we click like view, right-click view page source, the comments will not show up. So yeah, they're not ever. Nobody's going to be able to see them on the front end of your website or anywhere. Welcome back, guys. So still in our htdocs here. I have my file open. My server's running already, picking up where we left off from our comments video. I just want to show you another very important thing in PHP, and that's how to display errors and make sure that that's turned on. Because remember, if we're working with JavaScript, we can right-click, hit inspect, and go right to our console that's built into our browser to see errors. But again, guys, we're on PHP now, so we're running all of our code through a PHP interpreter server through MAMP or XAMPP if you're on Windows, whatever you chose to download. And PHP is not read by the browser, so it has no idea what that PHP is even here right now. It's totally separate. So if there's something wrong with our code, like if I forget to put the semicolon and save, and then I refresh, like nothing's going to happen. Now, if I write any code after this, and it's not going to work, and save, and I try to look in my console, nothing's going to be there, okay? But if I refresh the page, now I'm getting my error. Parse errors. So you're going to see, instead of using the console like we did for JavaScript, and we can just close this out right now because we're writing PHP, not JavaScript, you want your errors to make sure that they display. So it even on here, unexpected token echo. So it's basically saying there's an echo here, but you didn't tell us that you stopped your code. So now if I do that, refresh, my errors go away. But that's where your errors are going to display. Now you need to make sure that your errors are turned on, because you might have just tried to do what I did and you didn't get an error or anything, and maybe you just got like a error 500 couldn't reach server, which will happen if your error reporting isn't turned on. To make sure that your errors are on, you need to view your settings for your PHP server that we installed. And to do that, you can do a little built-in function called phpinfo. So this is like a little built-in function, or PHP method here. Now if I do phpinfo, call the function, save my page, and refresh, that's going to bring us to our PHP options tab. So this is for PHP, man. It's pretty cool, huh? So we're on PHP 8.3.14. And now all of this stuff is just like what's enabled and disabled. So if we just keep scrolling down, we want to find error reporting. And right, you really want to make sure all these boxes are checked. Display errors on, local value and master value on, display startup errors on. Okay? So as long as those are displayed, you're already good to go. They should be by default. Back in the day when you would download PHP, you have to like manually do all this, but I think the newer installations of MAMP and XAMPP, it's turned on by default. Now, if it's not turned on, what you need to type in here is ini underscore, and you're going to get rid. There's a lot of underscores in PHP when we're naming variables and stuff and calling functions. They use underscores a lot in PHP. Now that's different from JavaScript, but just get used to writing a lot of underscores. Okay, so ini underscore set, then your parentheses, and then we're going to put some quotes, and we're going to say display underscore errors, and then we'll do a comma, and then to turn it on we want to say number 1 and save. Okay, so then you should be able to refresh, and all your error stuff. Make this big again. Right here, all your display errors should turn on, and you want to make sure all these are on so when we build projects, we're good to go. You'll get your errors if there's something wrong. Otherwise, it's not going to tell you anything. It's just the page is just going to break, and it's going to say like error 400 couldn't reach server. Okay, so it's a number just to give you some like computer science. It's a number 1 because a number 1 in coding means yes to a computer, and a number 0 means no. So you want to just keep that to a number 1. Just make sure that, or if it's already set, you don't have to do anything. But again, it's important, guys, that you follow this exercise with me and make sure your error reporting is on, so that we know if something's wrong with your code and what to fix. Welcome back, guys. So I just want to show you one other way and the better way to turn your error reporting and other stuff on and off within PHP, because there's actually a better way to do it than just writing this code out in your editor. So what you'll do is you want to get the PHP version that you're on, which we got that from running our PHP info. And I want to show you one more thing from the other video. If we want to be able to turn our errors on and off this way, so if I made this 0, save, refresh, you're going to notice that if we go down to display errors, so display errors, everything is still on. That didn't do anything. It's because we need to put our PHP info, we need to call it last, right? Because remember, just like JavaScript, files are read from the top down. So you need to put this here first and then call PHP info. And then if we refresh, now it's off. See how that's off now? But anyway, we don't want to do that. You don't ever want to have your errors. Well, okay, I take that back. When you actually set your errors on in PHP, to off, is when you actually launch your project live on the web. Because if something goes wrong, you don't want like regular users to be on like facebook.com and then a PHP error is displaying. You wouldn't want that, right? So that's when you turn them off. But while you're building an application, you always have them on. But anyway, the better way to do this, to view this stuff, is to go to get your PHP version, whatever version you're currently on. There might be a new version by the time I release this course, but it doesn't matter. This is all going to be the same. So we're on 8.3.14, okay? So let's keep that in mind. I'm going to go to Applications, and then go to MAMP. And then I'm going to see this folder. It's the first one. It's going to say bin. I'm going to open the bin folder file to see what's in here. And then there's PHP. And then we want to select the version we're on. We're on 8.3.14, so let's go in there. And then we want to go to conf. Conf stands for config. And then this php.ini is like our main settings file. So if I just double click it, it's going to open up in Visual Studio Code by default. It might ask you, do you want to open this with Visual Studio Code? And then you're going to get this big file with a bunch of stuff commented out and some stuff commented on. What we're going to do is just hit Ctrl F or Command F on Mac and just type in display underscore errors to get to the display errors area. And here it is. They're on by default, and this is how you should control them. If you want to comment them off, just put the semicolon like the rest of the file. Save. Put the semicolon here. Save. And then if we go refresh over here. So let's refresh and let's go see if they're off. I can't remember if you comment them out or just no. So they're still on. So maybe we just turn them to off. Sorry, it's been a while, guys. So let's do this. Back in the day, that would turn them off. So these are display startup and display errors. So let's just try saying off and off. Refresh. So they're still on, so let's try this. Maybe we probably have to reset our server. And when you make changes, guys, sometimes you have to do that. So let's stop the server. There we go. So let's stop our MAMP server. Now let's start it again. Sometimes you have to like refresh this thing because and same thing. I know XAMPP messes up too sometimes. Like it just like stops working or responding like it should. Okay, so display starters. Let's refresh. Now everything's off. So we had to restart the server. That's why. But that's how you would turn them off. Again, you don't want to do this unless you're launching a project live from your test environment from MAMP to like the live web to a real server. That's when you'd want to turn them off. But So let's make sure these are on though. Let's not do that, okay? Make sure you turn them back on. Don't forget. On, save. Stop the server. Start the server. Refresh. Everything's back on. Display errors is all back on. Okay? So anyways, I want to show you that as well, guys. Okay? I'll see you in the next video. Alright, guys. So I wanted to do a quick video here just to kind of bring everything together so you can start seeing how like a full stack application works, okay? So let's go ahead and launch everything. So I'm going to launch my MAMP. Remember, we have to start our MAMP server if we want to interpret PHP, right? This MAMP speaks PHP. It's going to give us a PHP server on our computer. Always have to start that first. I'm going to keep hammering that home. So let's start our MAMP server. And then let's open up Visual Studio Code, or at least I'm going to open up mine. And I'm back in my PHP intro. Let me open up a new window here. And then remember, we need to go, and we're in our htdocs folder in MAMP. So just to refresh your memory one more time, let's go to, at least I'm going to go to my applications, MAMP. And then I showed you how to do all of the error stuff. We don't need any of that right now. But we do need, so in your MAMP files, if you scroll down, remember your htdocs is where all of your stuff is going to live. So we have a folder in our htdocs called PHP intro. And then I have 1-intro.php in here, right? So let's create a new file in here. And let's say 2-fullstack.php. And we're not going to make a full stack application, but I am just going to show you that all languages will run in a PHP file, which is pretty cool. So we can get our boilerplate here, and then our title can be bringing it all together. And do this with me, guys. Get used to launching your server and writing PHP files. Bringing it all together, right? So now we got to open this thing up. So remember, to do that, we have to go to, in our browser now, we got to type in localhost, and mine at least is, I left it on port 8888, so that's going to get me into my htdocs file in my PHP intro folder, and now there's our second file that we just created, 2-full-stack.php. It's right there, so now we can select it and load it up, and now MAMP has it here, and then here's our title, bringing it all together. And notice how we have the little PHP logo up here, so MAMP knows that, or the browser knows that, hey, you're in PHP, we got you, right? So let's do an H1 now. Let's say hello world in HTML. Save. Remember, we got to refresh your page now to see that. It's not going to automatically update. And then we can go on our head of our document, put some style tags, and we can say we want to do our CSS refresh, or reset, I should say. So we'll do margin 0, padding 0, box sizing border box, refresh, and look at that, it worked. We can do font family, so let's say body, font family, and let's do Arial, and now refresh. Okay, so our CSS, now we have CSS and HTML working in our PHP file, right? So that's pretty cool. We can make our PHP tag, so let's say PHP, and then the closing tag. Okay, and now we can echo in here, say echo. This came from PHP. Save, update, there it is. Now we have PHP running in here with our HTML and CSS. Now, of course, we can also go down here. We could say script, or do our script tags. Can do an alert. And now we could say in our alert, this is now a full stack web page. Web page? Probably one word. Yeah? I don't know. Maybe it's two. Now we have JavaScript running. So now everything is running on the PHP server. Now it's not truly full stack because we still haven't gotten into databases yet, which we will. Not yet, but we will. And then when we add a database, that's really the last ingredient, and that's how full stack apps are made, guys. They can all live, and they all live, at least in the PHP world, in .php files for the most part. So just to kind of get your brain, get the wheels turning here of like how all this is going to work in the future and how full stack apps work. Again, PHP is the only language you can do this with because it was specifically made to go together with HTML and CSS and JavaScript perfectly. This is the original web stack is PHP. Remember, everybody today is trying to teach you Node.js so that you can write everything in JavaScript. Ruby on Rails was another backend language that was supposed to replace PHP. That never happened. People, not so much nowadays, but they were pushing Python 2 or 3 years ago. Like Python was going to take over web development. That's another backend language. Java's been around almost as long as PHP. So Java is a solid language, but that's used for, and it's not JavaScript, it's Java, just so you know. This is another backend language. And Java's been around for a very long time, but it's usually only used, you're only going to be using Java if you're working for like a large corporation. They use Java a lot, but PHP is the only language where you can do this in a regular old browser without a compiler or a text editor that costs money to run. I think if you have to run other programming languages, like you have to spend like $30 on a text editor, and it might even be monthly to run it, because Java and Python, they all require you to compile your code, which is just another hoop to run through to make things run. PHP, again, it's an awesome full stack language. It's the one everybody should learn first. It's the most used. It's the easiest to use because it integrates with everything we've been doing already, right? Remember, PHP, we could say percentage or how many websites use PHP. Remember, we looked this up. 77%, guys. It's everywhere. So again, do not fall for the hype for the other languages. You can go into Java or Node.js or whatever you want to, but learn the basics of full stack web development the easiest way possible. And the easiest way possible is to start with PHP. All right, guys. So there's everything, bringing it all together. And that's going to be it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. What's up, guys? So this is Nick from the future, or Practical Web Dev from the future, whatever you want to call me. And I just wanted to go over one more thing with MAMP or XAMPP, or, if you're whatever server you're using to run PHP in your local little machine development environment. I just want to point out one thing that can get really annoying. So this is like a little preview of an app that we're going to build later in the course that I've been building out. And, you'll build this with me eventually. We have a login page. It actually has PHP to know if you're logged in. If we try to log in, invalid, like it knows. And then if we do log in with the correct credentials, we can actually go to the members only VIP area. If we go back to the login screen, it says, hey, you're already logged in. And this is all done with PHP. So we're going to be building this fairly soon. It's one of our first projects. Simple little login area. But sometimes when you're updating your page, especially with like HTML and CSS, remember I said that we're going to have to be clicking the refresh button every time to update our changes. But sometimes you'll update something and you'll hit refresh and you won't see it. And that just means that you have to do like it's called a hard refresh. And to do that, guys, if we look, and a hard refresh is basically clears your cache of your web page so that it's like a whole fresh new page. So if we type in hard reset for Windows, or sorry, not hard refresh, hard reset, hard refresh. You're doing like a hard, so this is the refresh button on the page, and sometimes it doesn't work and you do a hard refresh. So if you do Ctrl-Shift-R on Windows, if you're on a Windows machine, that'll give you, I'm going to do it on mine, it'll do a hard refresh, it'll clear your cache out, and then a lot of times that'll fix whatever's wrong, and then your changes will show up. So don't get frustrated if that happens. Sometimes you'll hit regular refresh and it won't work. If you're on Mac OS, it's the same thing. It's just Command-Shift-R. So I'll say Mac OS, Command-Shift-R. That's a hard refresh of the page. And you can do that not just with XAMPP and MAMP, but if you ever have web pages in just your real life when you're trying to look stuff up or visit websites, if it's acting weird, that's a skill you can use in real life. Just do a hard refresh. A lot of people don't know about it, and that'll usually fix whatever issues are on a web page. So I just wanted to tell that to you guys now before we get building, because without knowing it, you're eventually going to run into the thing where your server is just not updating the page correctly, and you need to do a hard refresh, and it's going to get frustrating if you don't know that's a thing. All right, guys, so I'll see you in the next video.